Jenifa shimmied slightly as she adjusted the silk turban covering her meticulously done cornrows. She stood on the marble balcony of her palatial home in Banana Island, Lagos, overlooking the serene lagoon. The days of quarter and Sul were long gone. Now, Jenifa was a certified success, running a thriving conglomerate of beauty parlors and a rapidly growing foundation for empowering market women. She was, quite simply, the queen of her upscale creek, loved by everyone from the gateman to the estate chairlady. Her reputation wasn't just built on money, it was built on her heart. She held monthly medical outreaches and famously funded a borehole project for the neighboring community, always using her signature blend of broken English and genuine concern to connect with the people. Her friends, including the ever-supportive Kiki and the perpetually worried Toyosi, often joked that she was the most reliable person in the entire estate, a true humanitarian. But tranquility in luxury estates, much like Jenifa's newly acquired vocabulary, was fleeting. A few weeks ago, a new neighbor had moved into the compound directly opposite hers, Dr. Lawrence Lobster Obina. He was sleek, sophisticated, and spoke in the smooth, almost irritating tones of a man who had never had a bad day or a financial struggle. Lobster quickly established his own presence by launching the Pinsa Foundation, an NGO dedicated to international relief and development. His grand, star-studded launch party and perfectly curated social media feed started drawing the attention that Jenifa's modest, practical efforts usually commanded. He was polished where she was authentic, and the estate elite were quickly shifting their affection. Jenifa felt a slight irritation, not from envy, but from an instinct she couldn't ignore. "This lobster, he too shiny," she muttered to herself, feeling a familiar tingling in her gut, the same feeling she got when she sensed a scam in her Ilorin days. Something about his dazzling perfection didn't quite sit right with the Queen of the Creek. Lobster's Pinsa Foundation became the talk of Lagos high society almost overnight. He hosted elegant, black-tie fundraisers that seemed less about charity and more about showcasing his expensive taste and international connections. Unlike Jenifa's practical, hands-on aid, Lobster's work involved complicated presentations, jargon-filled mission statements, and frequent, well-photographed trips abroad. Jenifa and her trusted team, Kiki, who handled the financial spreadsheets, and Toyosi, the social media guru, watched the rapid ascent with a mixture of amusement and concern. "Jenifa, see how he's calling it sustainable capacity building," Kiki observed, rolling her eyes while reviewing her own foundation's legitimate expenses. "The only capacity he's building is his pocket capacity." Despite her humor, Jenifa was genuinely perplexed by the sheer scale of his operations. Lobster seemed to have unlimited funding, purchasing new branded SUVs every quarter and hiring a massive, impeccably dressed staff. He was always seen giving impassioned, articulate interviews where he spoke about saving vulnerable populations, often mentioning his personal commitment to fighting global injustices. Jenifa decided to pay a friendly, unannounced visit, bringing a gift of her famous ofada rice. Lobster, though courteous, was overly guarded. He meticulously avoided showing her his main office, instead directing her to a small, pristine meeting room for their chat, claiming the rest of the facility was highly sensitive due to international security protocols. The visit only strengthened Jenifa's suspicion. "Lobster," she recounted to her friends later, "he looked like clean fish, but he smelled like stale fish. The man is too organized. Real philanthropist. We are always smelling like sweat and sanitizer, not expensive cologne." She knew she needed to dig deeper into the man who threatened her standing as the local favorite. The real catalyst came one humid Tuesday evening. Jenifa was leaving her compound, dressed down in a simple bubu, heading to a late-night meeting with her market women committee. As her driver navigated the bend past Lobster's imposing gate, she saw something flash quickly in the shadows. A young woman, neatly dressed in a Pinsa Foundation uniform, stumbled out of the side entrance, clutching a large duffel bag. Her face was partially obscured by her hand, but as she passed under a street lamp, Jenifa's sharp eyes caught a glimpse of a faint, purplish bruise blooming around the woman's cheekbone. The woman looked terrified and in a hurry. Before Jenifa could tell her driver to stop, a heavy, black SUV, with tinted windows exactly like the ones Lobster used, pulled up rapidly, and a bulky man jumped out. He aggressively cornered the woman, forcefully snatching the duffel bag and shoving her back toward the compound's gate. The entire, brutal interaction lasted less than 30 seconds. The casual display of domestic violence, coupled with the clear intimidation, sent a shockwave of rage through Jenifa. This was not the conduct of a noble humanitarian, it was the behavior of a dangerous bully. The encounter confirmed her worst fears. Lobster's shine was masking deep, ugly corruption. "Driver, turn back," Jenifa commanded, her voice firm. "We are canceling the meeting. We have new assignment now. Justice must be served for that girl. Nobody messes with a woman like that on Jenifa's watch. We will start with finding out where that girl lives." Jenifa immediately summoned her closest confidants, Kiki and Toyosi, and detailed the disturbing scene she had witnessed. Toyosi, being naturally dramatic, gasped and crossed herself, immediately suggesting they call the police, but Jenifa shook her head. "Police will only say, private matter. We need evidence that can expose the whole fish head, not just the tail." Kiki, ever the pragmatist, accessed public records and found that the Pinsa Foundation was registered as a charity focused on facilitating international cultural exchange and child welfare. However, Kiki noted that the financial disclosures filed were suspiciously sparse, showing enormous, round-figure expenditures with vague descriptions like logistics and operational costs. Using her old street skills, Jenifa devised a plan to infiltrate the compound. She decided she needed to get closer to the source of the organization's logistics. "Toyosi, you will use your Instagram power," Jenifa declared. "You will start liking all Lobster's pictures and commenting sweet things. Tell him your friend, Jenifa, wants to collaborate on a big project." The distraction worked. Lobster, eager for Jenifa's local influence, invited her and Kiki for a small, planning session. While Jenifa kept Lobster occupied with a ludicrous speech about an international girly tying championship and charity gala, Kiki, claiming she needed to use the restroom, slipped away with a tiny recording device. Kiki didn't get far, but she did capture a snippet of conversation between two of Lobster's staff mentioning a Monday shipment and the safe room. Jenifa realized the logistical cover was likely concealing something criminal, and the key to exposing it lay within the highly restricted part of Lobster's building. The next step required covert entry. Jenifa insisted on leading the operation herself. "Nobody knows how to enter place quiet like me," she boasted, tying a black wrapper around her waist like a ninja. Toyosi and Kiki were tasked with monitoring the perimeter from a parked vehicle, ready to sound an alarm using a prearranged distress signal. Under the cover of a brief power outage, strategically engineered by Jenifa's resourceful former area boy contacts, Jenifa slipped into the compound. She easily disabled the interior alarm system, remembering techniques from her early, less-than-legal entrepreneurial days, using a simple paperclip and a piece of chewing gum. She located the safe room, disguised as a utility closet, and, true to her word, Jenifa didn't use a complicated gadget. Instead, she applied a technique she called pressure talking, which involved pressing her ear to the steel door and manipulating the lock mechanism with a modified hairpin until she heard the satisfying click. Inside, the room was cold and sterile. It wasn't full of cash or gold. Instead, it contained rows of folders, passports, and a high-tech computer workstation. On the main monitor was a live feed of what appeared to be a dormitory full of young people, all dressed in matching uniforms, looking scared and waiting. The sight of the vulnerable youth filled Jenifa with a cold dread that overpowered her initial amusement. This was far more serious than financial fraud. It was a matter of human lives. She quickly downloaded critical files onto a secured flash drive Kiki had provided, knowing she needed to get out before the power returned. Back at Jenifa's house, the team huddled around a tablet, reviewing the recovered files. The scale and depravity of Lobster's operation quickly became clear. The Pincer Foundation was not an adoption agency or a relief organization, it was a highly sophisticated front for a human trafficking ring. The folders contained false visas and forged travel documents. Lobster was exploiting young, desperate individuals from rural areas, promising them legitimate, high-paying jobs in Europe and America. Instead, he was using his cultural exchange program to facilitate their illegal migration, often leading them into forced labor or worse. The chilling evidence also included encrypted messages and meticulous financial ledgers. The money flowed through a complex network of shell companies, with most of the funds eventually pooling into two accounts, one in the Cayman Islands and another, surprisingly, in Accra, Ghana. The Ghanaian account was labeled simply, the Chief's Fund. Ghana. Why Ghana? Toyosi asked, bewildered. Jenifa looked at the documentation, noticing regular, large transfers from the Nigerian branch to the Accra branch, always referencing logistics for recruitment. It appeared Ghana was a crucial staging point in Lobster's trafficking pipeline, maybe even the place where the victims were processed or held. The quest for justice, which had started as a local neighborhood squabble, suddenly went international. Jenifa looked at her friends, her expression serious. We must follow the money, she stated. If the chief is in Accra, then we are going to Accra. This thing is bigger than Banana Island, these people need Jenifa's help, no time to waste. Within 48 hours, the Snoop Troop, Jenifa, Toyosi, and Kiki were on a plane to Accra, armed with the flash drive and a highly questionable itinerary. Jenifa insisted on taking only the bare essentials, which for her meant a suitcase full of designer clothes and a large, colorful galley. The trip was immediately chaotic. Jenifa, determined to blend in, tried to speak Twi with the customs officer, who only spoke English. She accidentally hailed a public bus instead of a private taxi, leading to a loud, comical argument over the fare and the location of their supposed luxury hotel. Kiki, however, was strangely calm and methodical throughout the entire ordeal, handling the logistics with unusual ease, even correcting the taxi driver's directions to their local meeting point near a market called Makola. She was speaking with a crisp, former Ghanaian accent whenever she needed to communicate, a detail Jenifa missed in a high-strung state. Their mission was to find the physical address associated with the Chief's Fund and determine who controlled it. The initial investigation led them to a quiet, unassuming office building, which, according to local records, was registered to the Pincer Foundation's regional director, a man named Dr. Kwasi Mensah. Jenifa and Toyosi decided to stake out the office, with Jenifa disguised in a massive, floppy hat and sunglasses, looking more conspicuous than ever. Kiki, claiming she needed to organize local resources, volunteered to stay back at the hotel, which, in hindsight, was the first real warning sign. Jenifa and Toyosi were sitting in a sweaty local buka across the street from the Pincer office, sipping sugary drinks and watching the entrance. After 2 hours, a familiar figure emerged, Lobster, looking perfectly relaxed and speaking into his phone. He was not supposed to be in Ghana, his social media claimed he was at a conference in Dubai. As Lobster entered the office building, Jenifa felt a rush of adrenaline. She and Toyosi quickly decided to follow him inside. They found their way to the main, air-conditioned conference room, where Lobster was now sitting at a large mahogany table, reviewing documents with Dr. Mensah. But seated at the head of the table, dressed in a sleek power suit and directing the conversation in that same clipped, former Ghanaian accent, was Kiki. Jenifa's blood ran cold. Kiki was not at the hotel, she was here, acting as the operational boss of the regional headquarters. Lobster smiled smugly and casually reached across the table to place his hand on Kiki's shoulder, a gesture of ownership, not friendship. My dear, the evidence is coming, Lobster purred to Kiki. Jenifa is right across the street, trying to pretend she's a tourist. She doesn't suspect a thing, darling. The betrayal hit Jenifa like a physical blow. Kiki, her trusted friend and business partner, was not only Lobster's associate but his wife. She was the true chief of the Ghanaian operations, using her knowledge of Jenifa's tactics and finances to shield their criminal enterprise. The shock of the betrayal instantly overshadowed the criminal evidence. Jenifa didn't retreat, she went full Jenifa. She stormed into the conference room, the door swinging open violently, causing everyone to jump. "Kiki. So you are the snake in my backyard. You are the pincer, and Lobster is just your small fish," she yelled, her perfect English forgotten in the heat of the moment. Kiki rose slowly, a cold, resentful expression replacing her usual friendly demeanor. "Jenifa, you always made everything look so easy," Kiki said, her voice dripping with envy. "You walked out of the ghetto and into a mansion, beloved by everyone. I have the brains, the education, and the sophistication, but everyone still only wants the Jenifa show. Lawrence promised me the control I deserved." Lobster stood up, trying to inject an air of professional menace. "Jenifa, you should have stayed in your lagoon. You've seen too much. Give us the drive, and we can make this go away." He signaled to Dr. Mensah, who began moving toward the door to block their exit. A chaotic and genuinely funny scuffle erupted. Toyosi, surprisingly, kicked a waste bin, sending it flying into Dr. Mensah's path. Jenifa, relying on her nimble street instinct, grabbed a large, ceremonial wooden mask from the wall and swung it, missing Lobster but knocking over the water cooler and splashing everyone. In the ensuing watery confusion, Jenifa snatched the physical ledger Kiki had been studying and, grabbing Toyosi's arm, sprinted out of the office. Lobster and Kiki, completely thrown off by Jenifa's unexpected, aggressive chaos, could only watch in fury as the two friends scrambled down the stairs and disappeared into the busy Accra traffic. Jenifa and Toyosi didn't stop running until they reached a secure location provided by the local police contact of a former employee. They were shaken by the betrayal but fueled by the ledger they had snatched. The book contained the final, undeniable proof, encrypted victim list, illegal transfer codes, and Kiki's handwritten notes detailing their next shipment route. With the international nature of the crime and the domestic abuse Jenifa had witnessed, they knew they couldn't trust just anyone. Using her contact from the Market Women's Association, Jenifa reached out to a trusted, high-ranking official at the Nigerian Immigration Service who had a reputation for honesty and integrity. The official, seeing the irrefutable evidence in Kiki's own handwriting, coordinated with Interpol and the Ghanaian authorities. The operation was launched immediately. Lobster and Kiki were apprehended at the Accra airport, attempting a hasty escape with new aliases and fake passports. The scandal was enormous, reaching global headlines. The Pincer Foundation was revealed as a trafficking front, and the luxurious Banana Island estate was rocked by the exposure of its sophisticated criminal residents. Jenifa, despite the personal pain of Kiki's betrayal, was hailed as a true hero who used her platform not for vanity, but for genuine justice. Jenifa returned to Lagos, older and wiser, and with her philanthropic legacy cemented. She established a new foundation focused on protecting vulnerable migrants, naming it the Eco Trust. As she stood on her balcony, gazing across the lagoon, she knew one thing for sure: everybody still loved Jenifa, but now they also knew she was the one person you never wanted to cross.